Yo, hey, this shit easy, nigga. Hey, all I'm talking about, nigga, I'm still out here trying to get it.
Contender Regime Boxing, checking back in with y'all, man. What's going on? So, of course, big news this past weekend with Errol Spence Jr. and Yordenis Ugas unification fight announced as official. Created a lot of uproar. A lot of fans happy about the unification match. A lot of fans, feeling some type of way. Of course, everybody wants to see Errol Spence versus Terence Crawford, and as soon as possible, next preferably, because that's the biggest fight in boxing. It's a huge fight. I think it's a huge fight financially and, outside of the ring, just as far as the business, the notoriety for both guys, the brand, the name, popularity, everything that it can do for those guys financially and, marketability wise, and just increasing their brand as a whole is big in that regard. But I think it's an even bigger fight stylistically and, competitively from an entertainment factor. I just think it's a great fight, and everybody want to see that fight. I wanted to see that fight next, but at the same time, a lot of people I feel like are, in the midst of them being angry that we're not getting Spence and Crawford next. I think a lot of people really sliding Yordenis Ugas. A lot of people really low-key downplaying the ability, the skills, the pedigree of Yordenis Ugas and what this man can do and what he's done to put himself in this position. And that's very disrespectful. Yordenis Ugas is a very good fighter. Very good fighter, extremely skilled fighter, and a very intelligent, very smart fighter. Has a phenomenal boxing background, amateur. Again, it's well known that Yordenis Ugas defeated Terence Crawford in the amateurs. I believe he defeated him twice, but I know for sure that he did beat Terence Crawford in the amateurs, which is a great accomplishment. Terence Crawford being pound for pound. A lot of people have him number one pound for pound in the sport of boxing today. I personally have Alexander Usyk number one, but Terence Crawford is right up there. Accomplished some great things in the sport. And for Yordenis Ugas to say, even in the amateurs, for Yordenis Ugas to be able to say that he got a win over Terence Crawford, that's big. And you look at what Yordenis Ugas has been able to do in his professional career, coming off of, in my opinion, the biggest win amongst the current welterweights in the game right now versus Manny Pacquiao. Huge win as an underdog. Replacement fighter for Errol Spence. Winning that fight, a lot of people counted him out. A lot of people felt like Manny Pacquiao was going to stop him, just dog walk him, do him dirty. Again, these people were saying that Manny Pacquiao was going to whoop Errol. It was a lot of people saying Manny Pacquiao was going to beat the fuck out Errol. Like they was talking real greasy. Of course, I thought the motherfuckers was crazy, but at the same time, these were the sentiments of a lot of boxing fans. And Yordenis Ugas went out there, man. He put on a phenomenal performance, a very calculated, intelligent, very skillful performance, man. And he outboxed Manny Pacquiao, controlled him. Controlled him skillfully and controlled him physically. Let him know you in here with a bigger guy, a stronger guy, a better guy. On that night, Yordenis Ugas was a better fighter than Manny Pacquiao, a more skilled fighter. And it was nothing that Manny Pacquiao could do to, throw Ugas off his game plan. You dig what I'm saying? So I say all that to say this, man. You can be bummed out that Spence and Crawford isn't happening next, but don't let that put you in a space to downplay this challenge that Errol Spence is facing in this unification match. Again, Yordenis Ugas beat the real WBA champion, Manny Pacquiao, the great, the legend, all-time great, one of the greatest fighters you ever seen in your life, who was coming off a win over undefeated world champion in Keith Thurman. Remember, Manny Pacquiao beat Keith Thurman, undefeated, unified world champion. He got stripped of the WBC belt, but he was the real WBC and WBA world champion, Keith Thurman. Manny Pacquiao beat that guy, and Yordenis Ugas just beat Manny Pacquiao. Yordenis Ugas, who had a very close fight with Sean Porter. A lot of people thought he won that fight. Me personally, I think Sean Porter edged it on out. But outside of that loss, Yordenis Ugas was like on a 10 fight win streak. I mean, he's been putting on a string of like really good wins. Beat undefeated welterweight Omar Figueroa, who's a very good fighter. So Errol Spence is about to face a real threat, a real champion. And this is a great fight. It's a unification fight. Errol Spence is defending his WBC and IBF world titles. Yordenis Ugas defending his WBA world title. And I mean, stylistically, it's going to be a great fight. You got two big welterweights, very strong guys. Both of these guys are physically, I think Spence and Ugas both are two of the most physically strong welterweights in boxing. Two very cerebral and heady guys, very smart fighters with a lot of ring IQ, a lot of skill. Of course, Yordenis Ugas is Cuban. He got that, come from the school of Cuban boxers, man, where they really focus on the fundamentals. When you look at Cuban boxers, for the most part, they really focus on the fundamentals. That's why you see a lot of those guys, they be really sharp boxers. They be slick. All of them have different styles, but you will notice one thing about them. They boxing, just the fundamentals, the foundational skills, they be real sharp. Amateur background be extensive. And, Errol Spence, we know what he brings to the table. I think this fight could go a few different ways, man. I can see this shit being a chess match all the way through. Yordenis Ugas or Errol Spence winning a decision. I can see this shit going tooth and nail, split decision, a battle in the trenches. I can see this shit being fought in the phone booth. Errol Spence is willing to fight you in the middle of the ring and trade with you and use his amazing distance control to, be able to stay in the middle of the ring, not take too many steps back, but still be in range to hit you and not get hit, let his shit off and still control you with a great jab. Yordenis Ugas is no stranger to fighting in the trenches in the phone booth. So he would be willing to sit there and trade and see, who's counterpunching is better, who's quicker, who's faster, who's smarter, who has better timing. Man, this shit could go a lot of different ways. I can see Errol Spence going out there and, turning up, because I think Errol Spence is as hungry as he's ever been at this point, with a lot of people doubting him, a lot of people talking crazy. You know what I'm saying? A lot of people, really just taking, like he said on the post on Instagram, taking his silence for weakness. A lot of people, when Errol Spence went down on a car accident, man, a lot of people saw that as an opportunity to take shots at him, because secretly they was already hating. And then when he had the eye injury, he lost to Pacquiao. He didn't lose against Pacquiao, but he lost the opportunity to fight Manny Pacquiao, which I'm sure was devastating to him mentally. Well, I mean, he's a strong guy mentally, which is probably why he's still here and still doing the shit that he's doing right now, coming back from everything that he came back from. But still, that gotta be tough to know that you lost an opportunity to fight a legend like Manny Pacquiao. Put that name on your resume, and it's gonna be the biggest payday you ever had in your life. You know what I'm saying? So, but a lot of people saw that as an opportunity to take a shot at it. And then Terence Crawford, he beats Sean Porter. Now he's free from Top Rank. He comes out, make videos, talking crazy, which is all cool. Shout out to Terence Crawford again. Huge Terence Crawford fan here. But he, take this opportunity to take shots at Errol Spence and call him out and stuff, which is great. That's good. That builds the fight. That's what I want him to do. But the fans, a lot of these people talking from the outside, they looking at Errol like shit sweet. So if you know Errol Spence, if you know anything about him, if you've been following Errol Spence in his career, man, he loves these type of things fuel him. So I expect Errol Spence to be charged up. well rested, in shape, and ready to put on a great performance. I expect Errol Spence to be highly motivated, highly determined to make a statement in this fight. So I wouldn't be surprised if Errol Spence went out there, man, and put all type of limbs on Yordenis Ugas and tried to put hands on him for real, like really beat him down. Really try to make a statement, man, and get Ugas up out of there. It's a possibility that Ugas could turn up on Errol Spence and stop him. This is a very competitive fight, and it's a true unification match. And I think a lot of people losing sight of that because they're upset that we're not getting Spence versus Crawford next. So keep an eye on that, man. This fight it makes sense. And in my opinion, this was the best case scenario if we're trying to get undisputed. Because if you look at Yordenis Ugas, he was almost being forced to fight in a tournament versus some young up-and-coming guys in the WBA. Let's say Errol Spence would have went to go fight Terence Crawford. Now that WBA belt gets lost in the sauce, it gets caught up in some tournament. Let's say one of these youngsters get it. Now they want to protect their O and they don't want to fight nobody. They want to, fight 3, 4, 5 fights before they actually fight a real threat. Ain't no telling what would have happened, man. So we probably wouldn't have never got undisputed if Errol Spence and Al Heyman just allowed Ugas to fall within that tournament with the WBA. But thankfully, the WBA, they heard the fans. Of course, I know some business went on behind the scenes. Some money was exchanged. And, we now have a unification match with Errol Spence and Yordenis Ugas. And for Terence Crawford, I think Errol Spence makes your life a whole lot easier. Your desire to be undisputed in 2 weight classes, it becomes an even more realistic thing now because Errol Spence is the one who has went, just like he said he was going to do the whole time. He went and collected all these belts one by one, chased down Kell Brook, beat him when he was in his prime for that IBF. You know what I'm saying? Beat the best version of Sean Porter that I've ever seen. Errol Spence beat Sean Porter, the best version of him, in a unification match. You know what I'm saying? Now, now he's going and fighting Yordenis Ugas, another champion, a top guy, and he's fighting him in a unification match. He's going to collect these belts one by one, and as he would put it, he's doing all the heavy lifting. And for Terence Crawford, all you got to do is beat one guy to be undisputed. Errol Spence, if he's able to be successful versus Ugas, the fight is set up between Spence and Crawford, preferably next. And you only got to fight one guy. You have to be one guy to be undisputed. And you're going to get a big payday for it, too. In my opinion, man, Errol Spence is making Terence Crawford's life a hell of a lot easier. Because if people want to talk about the easy route, and the ones who were already hating on Errol Spence, they look at that shit, they take that shit totally out of context. When Errol Spence said, why wouldn't I go the easy route? And he started naming all these PBC fighters, guys that are easy to make fights with on the business side, negotiation-wise. He said, why don't I just go the easy route? I can easily make a fight with Sean Porter. I can easily make a fight with Mikey Garcia. I can easily make a fight with Manny Pacquiao. I can easily make a fight with Yordenis Ugas. Why don't I just go the easy route? Collect all these belts over here, and then I'll link up with you when I got all the belts. And we'll fight for undisputed. Because you going to give me problems in negotiations. And I don't got time for that. Let me go ahead and fight these guys, get these belts, beef up my resume even more. And again, that's what he meant by easy route. But if we look at it from a competitive standpoint, you gotta be, as a boxing fan, if you know what you're looking at, you gotta be you gotta understand off top that Errol Spence has definitely went the path of more resistance. If you look at his last fights, man, undefeated multi-divisional world champion Mikey Garcia, pound for pound guy. You know what I'm saying? And then you fight Sean Porter, Unification, the best version of Sean Porter. You know what I'm saying? Then you fight Danny Garcia, fresh off the accident. Now you're about to fight Yordenis Ugas. You can go even further than that. The version of Kell Brook that he beat. You dig what I'm saying? Lamont Peterson, who was still a very tough opponent at that time. You look at the guys that Errol Spence beat, he's really taking the tougher road. So, in my opinion, Errol Spence is making Terence Crawford's life a whole hell of a lot easier, especially if his goal is to be undisputed. And we all know that Errol Spence wants to be undisputed. So, you know, I think people gotta, number one, give Yordenis Ugas some respect. Don't look at this shit as no cherry pick. Don't look at this shit as, oh, he taking the path of less resistance, because that's not true. Who's to say that Ugas wouldn't whoop Terence Crawford ass right now in the pros? You know what I'm saying? Who's to say that Ugas can't go out there and beat Errol Spence? That's why we got to see the fights. So you can't look at this shit like that. I think this is going to be a great fight. And Errol Spence, like he said, he doing all the heavy lifting. If Terence Crawford want to take the Virgil Ortiz fight, use that as a tune-up, you know, number one contender in the WBO, that's cool. If he want to just sit out and wait on Errol and, you know, preserve himself, that's cool too. But he got the path of least resistance. Errol Spence the one doing all the hard work. So y'all let me know what y'all think down in the comments, man. How do y'all feel about, you know, everybody being so upset about Errol Spence fighting a unification match, calling this a duck, a cherry pick, all type of weird shit. You know, I thought we was boxing fans here. I thought we wanted to see one face, one name, one champion, no matter how we get it. I thought we wanted to see unifications and undisputed. I know I damn well do. Whether it would have been Ugas or Crawford, I've been telling y'all the whole time, like Errol Spence, just like he said, tune-ups are for guys who are unsure of themselves. I want nothing but champions. And that's what the brother is doing. He's fighting a real legitimate world champion in Ugas, man. So y'all better put some respect on that man's name. Y'all let me know what y'all think down in the comments, man. Contender regime boxing. I'll holler at y'all boys, man.